This is 0verture, the Prelude Podcast. Welcome to the Prelude Podcast. My name is Chris Willis. I'm a principal security researcher here at Prelude.
Hi, I'm Alex Manners. I'm a principal security engineer at Prelude.
And today we have a special guest, Stephan, who was our intern, but now a full-time hire.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. I think I'm one of the last team members that hasn't been on, but check that box off now.
I don't know. Now the rate that we're growing, I'm not quite sure that's true anymore. I think there are probably more people that haven't been on the podcast that have been.
It's true now at this point, yeah. But like Chris said, I started off as an intern here at Prelude last summer of 2021. And then I was fortunate enough to join the team as a junior software engineer now. So, of course, glad to be here and glad to keep learning.
And you're still going to school?
Yeah, I am. So, I am a somewhat junior, somewhat senior in college still. I'm still taking classes, but I go to Virginia Tech studying mechanical engineering, which is way out of left field for the industry that I'm in now.
Yeah, that's definitely something we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
Like the whole transition from mechie to software engineering.
It was a big one, you know?
Interesting. Yeah.
Also interested in your personal calculus around the decision to drop out of school full time so that you could come join us on our journey and the Prelude research team.
Yeah, that decision as well as the one that I think about daily on just dropping out of school. The one that my parents aren't too fond of, but for me, it's a little enticing.
Stephan, we start every podcast with a guest with questions.
Okay.
So, first question out of the gate: what security technology or concept outside of what you're currently working on and doing do you want to see get better in the next year?
Yeah. I had to reflect upon this one, and I right off the bat, I couldn't think of anything. And as distracted as I get sometimes, I hopped on social media and was going on Instagram, right? And all throughout Instagram, there's just a ton of bots everywhere. You check the comments, the first 20 comments are all bots, all linking you to some sketchy website where, no doubt you'll download something you shouldn't, right? And I was like, wow, I feel like I've seen this everywhere, all over, all across social media. No matter where you are, there's just an endless amount of bots just portraying all these phishing links, right? And so I was thinking about the younger generation too. I have nieces and nephews now who are, 8 years old, and they have access to social media and they don't know any better. Right. So I think it's just terrible on the parts of social media companies to not have more restrictions onto newly created accounts or what you can link in and all of that. It's actually kind of scary because this younger generation is going to grow up not knowing the difference, not knowing what to trust.
Or will it be the other way around? We will always have to tell our parents, right? This is really not news.
Yeah. I think it could definitely go both ways. I think there's going to be a harsh reality check for a lot of the younger generations trying to click that link for 1,000 free V-Bucks, right? And instead, their parents' credit card gets charged, $1,000 the next day somewhere. So I think,
there's also this really interesting concept. I can't remember where I read it, where basically our generation, your age to a little bit older, we'll call it David's age, maybe even a little older than David. Yeah. We're in that perfect zone of technology where technology was at that point where we were young, mature enough where it was easy to get into and you could really learn the underpinnings of how it worked. And now we're at the point where most technology is completely simple to use and all of the underpinnings of how it works are abstracted from the user. So most people now who are born and use technology just won't understand how it works. It'll be like magic boxes. And then we, as a result of growing up around the actual foundational building of it, have a better understanding naturally. It's just interesting that like the old generation doesn't necessarily have a good understanding of technology, but now like the new generation doesn't either.
Yeah. It's also, like to your point of saying that, like we got to see technology and like the internet kind of grow, right? And this younger generation's kind of just been thrown into like a way more developed and like knowledgeable space on how things work. I mean, like cyber attacks really, 20 years ago weren't as apparent, I should say, weren't as developed. But now, like, throw some kids on an iPad and I guarantee they're going to click a sketchy link in 30 minutes. But that's like some like technology security, like surface level place that I'd really like to see get more attention to. I mean, even
so bot mitigation and like bot awareness.
Yeah. I mean, like even today I got an email and it's from obviously like 100% phishing email, right? I clicked the email address because I'm always just like interested. This email address was like 30 some characters long, all random order at another host name with like, 15 or so like characters long, just random. I was like, I mean, like, come on, Yahoo. Like, how do you think this is a real email address? Why would they be in contact with me? Also with like question marks in the subject name. It's like, come on.
But cheaping out, they don't want to pay for all.
No, I know.
Is it cheaping out or are they just using it because it works?
I think it's probably a little bit of both.
Yeah.
Google does a decent job, but then you go outside of Google's like, Gmail system, and then it's like, all right, well,
yeah.
And then if you do your own thing, then you realize like, oh, I should be doing this.
Gmail is awesome. I don't know if you guys have ever been like in a situation where you want to switch over to like a different email platform, right? So like I want to make the switch from Yahoo to Gmail. But it's like, man, I have accounts registered everywhere. I was like, I don't even know where to begin with that.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just scared.
It's a whole bunch of forward.
Yeah, I'm scared to take the dive.
You just gotta forward and then like, know that like when you forward, then you have your email set. So it's like your name plus Yahoo. So then it just comes from Yahoo every time.
It's gonna be a mess.
It's a pain.
It's gonna be a weekend thing for sure when I do decide to do it.
Yeah.
That's why I with Google I use that plus sign whenever I sign up for a new service. Mm-hmm. That way I know who's selling my data. And then I can register for an account, whatever email plus insert service name here at gmail.com. And then whenever it pops up as like, hey, would you like to meet local singles in your area? Thanks, company.
Yeah. Hey, dude, they're just looking out for you, right?
Yeah, by selling my data.
All right. Well, so I think we got a lot of things to discuss on how you got to Prelude and like the internship experience, and you were doing some QA stuff. Now you're doing some front end engineering. So I think the first thing is like you're in like mechanical engineering. Like, how did it get from like I'm a mechie to I want to do software engineering?
Yeah. And like I was thinking about this before I hopped on the podcast. I was like what like did click for me to make that switch?
You're not the only person I know who's done this.
Well, Alex, you studied some sort of engineering in college, right?
I did engineering management, and it was like process engineering, but it was highly computer science oriented. So I'm not like your shoes here. Yeah.
So the only experience that was really applicable to this before was if you guys are familiar with MATLAB.
Yep.
That was the extent of coding for me in my major. But I just like kind of thinking back, like I've always been
that definitely would make you learn the QA process.
Shots fired.
Definitely super relational. But for me, like I've always been like a creative person. I've always like the idea of inventing or just building on. And with that, part of being an engineer, as you guys know, is like being efficient, right? Like you want to always optimize anything you do. And in my life, I kind of thought of that the same way, like thinking of myself as a system, right? Like I want to be efficient, I want to optimize. And I didn't want to be limited in what I could do, right? And so I was like, hey, I'm going to go to school. I'm going to get a mechanical engineering degree because that'll cover most of my bases within engineering. And then also an engineering degree is just a degree in problem solving, right? So I can go to like whatever space I wanted to. That was my thought. But as I got to know mechanical engineering more, I felt that the space itself was just a little too slow for me, you know, and obviously there are other startups that are more fast paced, like what they're working on. But I had toured different like job sites and like had done an internship before, and the whole atmosphere was just slow, you know, and I wanted something fast paced. And that's why when I discovered the Prelude internship, found out what you guys or us now are doing, I just like fell in love with like how fast paced it was. And also the industry itself, cybersecurity is like the fastest growing industry in the world right now, I'd say.
Yeah.
And that's just like what like piqued my interest. I was like, you know what? I don't want to be stuck with all these old timers who are, you know, writing papers and maybe applying for patents, and that's about it. I was like, I want to be a part of something that like actually develops the future.
Yeah, you bring up a good point in that like a lot of engineering disciplines, they are quite slow paced. Like even thinking things like, you know, chemical engineering, things like that. Like even almost getting to electrical engineering.
Yeah.
Depending on what you do in electrical engineering, it could be fast paced or it could be real slow.
Yeah.
And it's very relevant to that computer science. And, you know, a lot like I even know at my university, like they didn't want to consider computer science engineering.
Yeah.
It was still computer science and engineering, but like we never got like engineering rings or anything like that, like all the other engineers did.
Was it like a discipline of like the College of Engineering?
Yeah, it was. So computer science. So some universities, they have computer science in both. So it's like it becomes like a humanity, and then it also becomes like an engineering degree. For us, we only had engineering degree. So it was computer science and engineering. So their designation to why it was in the engineering department was because it had architecture.
Interesting.
So my school did actually two separate degrees. They had a computer science degree, but you could also do a software engineering degree. So there were two completely separate tracks. And the computer science was bachelor's of science. And then the software engineering, I'm pretty sure was a BSE, and it wasn't engineering. So that they had like a clear delineation between the more mathy stuff and like,
yeah.
I think some schools like even do more of like a bachelor's of arts in computer science because it is more like philosophy, math type stuff.
For the software engineering major, was that like true to software engineering as it is now, or like more focused on hardware?
Yeah. So I actually took one of the classes that were part of that degree. And I was talking, I don't know why this came up, but I was talking about to somebody about this project. And one of the projects they have you do for it is basically help it's called the Miami and Indian tribe. So Miami University is named after an Indian tribe that lived in the Miami Valley. And they wanted to build some software to help students who are from those cultures learn the language, essentially. So we basically ripped off Rosetta Stone and just built our own version of like quote unquote Rosetta Stone, like those quad grid thing where it would say the word and you'd click on the image that matches whatever word. But that was the type of project that it would be. And it was more geared towards designing entire solutions and actual engineering of product, as opposed to going through and doing like
theory math.
What is it called when you do like problem reductions on like P and NP problems, like that?
Big O.
AKA the class I almost didn't pass. That's what I call it.
I'm in a lot of those. So wait, was your version of Rosetta Stone like your senior design project?
No,
or that was just something else?
I think it was like a 200 or 300 level class. I don't remember.
Did you have a senior design project?
I did.
What was it?
So
I need inspiration.
No, I wouldn't do mine. So mine was a path optimization related to monkeys and how they would travel through a rainforest. So one of the professors had been basically collecting data about the migration patterns of certain primates through some forest somewhere. And basically the goal was to figure out the best way to model and predict paths that the primates would take in the future based off the data that we had. So we did basically generated 3D topo maps and would come up with different ways to do path optimization over 3D topo. But that was very not interesting. It sounds way more interesting than it was. And I promise you it was not that interesting.
Well, I almost see an application of that, taking those primates instincts towards pathing, see if you can apply it to civil engineering and the way they develop roadways. If there's got to be a better way instead of me getting stuck at an intersection for an hour.
I think what we realized ultimately as the conclusion from it is they mostly stay to the highest elevation and would try to always go downhill when possible, which no shit.
Yeah.
I don't know, but now we have math and statistics to back it up. I don't know. I guess I just tend to go with what my gut says. Mostly downhill. Yeah. Try to stay as high ground as possible. I don't know.
Basically just consume as the least amount of energy as possible. Exactly. For them.
Do you have a project already or?
So I've done a lot of projects and I'm also working on two right now, more theoretical ones. But as for the senior design project, that'll be something for next year as my senior, for anyone who can't see, I have air quotes, my senior / 5th year, whatever you consider it. But I've heard the university just has a list of problems that they want you to solve. You just pick from one of them. I'm not sure if you can submit your own. I'm really hoping you can, though. But
I'm sure you can go to a professor and just say, "Hey, I got this idea for your lab."
Yeah,
and pitch it, because a lot of them just come from the labs. So you just end up working with some company that pays money to have you work on this.
Yeah, I'll go to my professor and be like, "Hey, your work on micro threading is really interesting. And on another note, I want to do something cybersecurity related." It's I don't see how that relates, but
you could probably grab some ICS stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
That would be pretty cool. Do some POCs against some of the PLCs they have.
Mm-hmm. I feel like I've heard that using an Arduino is required, so I'd have to make my fake point of contact there.
There was some really cool design projects out of VT doing security on the computer vision for driverless cars.
Yeah,
that was a few years ago, but there was some cool research, and there was quite a few security people that went to some bigger companies.
Really?
That was
what you could do if they're doing computer vision, you could see if there's a way for you to inject fake cars, fake data into the car's vision. Imagine if you could inject a pole 10 feet in front of the car into the the sensor data or the sensor processor, and just have it just went very dark, but you get my point.
Yeah, no, that whole space is so interesting to me. The self-driving cars, and I haven't done enough research on them to know what I'm talking about. Right. But I just feel like there's so many ways to take advantage of them that they've got to be susceptible.
Yeah. You could also go get one of those ODB readers, off Amazon, and see if you could wire up your own ODB reader so you could actually send messages through CAN bus, and then see if you could like bork your own car. That'd be pretty cool.
That would be awesome.
There's a device. It's called a Panda. It's from Comma.
Oh,
that does
all
that.
right. So get one of those.
Yeah.
Let's see. Yeah, I feel like I definitely have to do something in that space if I can. I mean, that's related to mechanical engineering in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Automation or automotives, right?
And they're actually testing cars out there in Blacksburg because there's not that many people there.
Hey, I'm here.
It's just students.
No,
Students aren't people, Kris.
It's just a bunch of
there are people out there. There's just students.
On an unrelated note to the podcast, but Blacksburg, the percentage of students to actual residents, it's like 80% students and then 20% residents. So during the summer, Blacksburg businesses like they struggle to survive. It's terrible.
That sounds like my school too. Miami University is very, very much like that. Once the students leave, that's it.
That's it. They just like pray for them to come back.
So now that you've fully dove into the software engineering realm, are you finding anything from your mechanical engineering experience and learning that is helping you be a more successful software engineer?
I think the biggest point that I've learned through my mechanical engineering studies is, like I said, it's a degree in problem solving, right? And with mechanical, we've covered so many different topics, whether like they're more physics related or material science, statics, stuff like that. There's a set way to approach a problem. And I feel like I've used that almost every time I log onto our code base, when I have to do QA or when I have been tasked a bug to fix, right? I had to like take a step back and break down our entire like chunk of code that I'm looking at, right? And like analyze it to see which like piece of it that I'm actually tackling, right? Because part of mechanical engineering is taking a bigger problem and breaking it down into like smaller, more digestible chunks. And I feel like that I use that all the time, especially when I was more, when I was newer to the code base, right? And struggling to read the different types of code that people write as well.
Some shade at Lewis there.
No shade thrown. It's just everyone has their own coding style, right? And so some I'd have to spend more time looking at, others I wouldn't. But
I really hope Lewis listens to this. He's like, hey, because now you work for him.
I know. He's like my boss now. I'll send him the timestamp when we upload it. No, but also working with Lewis is awesome. Yeah. And he's a great teacher.
Definitely. Yeah. That doesn't mean we can't give him shit over some of his code.
Oh, no.
Kris, for context, I actually had a conversation with Lewis about basically like making the code readable for our interns. And I was like, Lewis, your code is good and it's awesome. But it took me as one of the principal engineers on the project 2 hours to read it and understand what it was doing. So perhaps we make it a little simpler.
Yeah.
It's all that functional programming that's like having to like relate.
It's not even the functional components. Like it's that he's able to do a lot of nested reducers. Mm-hmm. That's really where I struggle. I can't do multi-level nested reducers and map the data models in my head. Where for him, that's easy. But for me, I just can't do it. So it takes me a lot longer to read that kind of programming. But everybody's different, right?
Yeah, his programming is awesome. It's like super compact, works super well. Yep. But like I said, I didn't know anything about coding really, especially not like a company's code base. When I got thrown into like the first problem I had to tackle and I looked at it, I was like, oh my God, I'm in the wrong career path. Like I've never struggled with classes or like learning things. And I looked at that and I was like, wow.
Everyone has that moment.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah, it doesn't help that it was basically Lewis, David, and I for 8 months. No commenting, no documentation, just straight up writing code and merging stuff in just to get like the product built prototype. So that you came on board and you're like,
hope it works.
What?
I forgot about that. Like in my brief MATLAB experience, like my professors would make me add comments to every single line so that like that they knew what was happening and so that we understood as well. I get thrown into that code base. There's no commenting or anything, no explanations. I was like, oh my gosh.
Going from MATLAB to Lewis's code.
Right. That should be my senior design project right there.
I think what we have to do for this podcast, because now that we've talked about his code, is include a snippet of one of his multi-nested, like multi-layer nested reducers, because they look awesome. You're totally right. And they're super cool.
Yeah.
I just can't read them.
Yeah. Or it's like you have to break them apart. You know, you have to take 3 lines, then space them out to like 15 different lines so you can see each nested part. That's literally what I would do, and then put it all back together.
I just like the fact that we've now spent several minutes talking about Lewis's code and he's not even here.
I know. We got the timestamp for him.
It's all right. I'm going to go message him later and be like, Lewis, we've talked about your code on the podcast, and it's going to be really funny.
The internships perspective, like, what do you feel like? I guess the question should be framed in like, so you did the internship, and you hope like you're here now, so you enjoyed it at some point, right? Like, what was that moment for you that was like, all right, like I want to do this?
Yeah.
Like, full time.
Honestly, it sounds super cheesy, and I've said it before, right? But my experience was made amazing because of the team that I was surrounded with. And obviously what we're doing here at Prelude is like super innovative. It's exciting, it's the future. And that was all super appealing to me. But at the end of the day, like the mentorship that I had primarily from Alex and Lewis and David and Kris, like obviously now, right? But I think you caught me towards the end of my internship.
Yeah. But
like just speaking to that internship program, like the fact that the team wanted to see me succeed was just like, wow, like you always hear like, right, I'm younger, right? You always hear about people hating work. They hate their team. They hate going into work. Like for me, it was exciting. Like I'd end up working by accident until like, 9, 10 at night as an intern, just like looking at the code base, just like learning things. And I was like, that's the moment I was like, I think I had to stay here. It's just, first of all, so valuable to me into like what I can learn and what I have learned. It's like the person I was a year ago, completely different to the man I am now, but just a team, But
yeah.
I mean, I'm sure you guys felt the same way when we do the co-working sessions. I was like, man, we need an office.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like a real office.
The counterpoint to that though is I also know that if we were all in an office together, we wouldn't get as much done.
No, not at all. Are you kidding me? We'd be watching like YouTube videos or something.
Oh, for sure. We would spend all day making Slack bots and posting
exactly
and memes. Yeah.
Yeah. But it still also doesn't feel real sometimes though, because I feel like you kind of base your life off of school, right? Like all I've known up to this point really was school. Like every day you wake up, you go to school. And I feel like I kind of needed that wake up call, that like that paper being handed to me. But instead I kind of just got like thrown in, it's like I got the internship and all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, you work full time now. It's like, but I don't know. Yeah. Like obviously it feels real, but like there's no like reality check, right? Where it's like, oh, you're an adult. That's it.
Yeah. I still remember when David was like, hey, I want you to interview someone for an internship. Doesn't know anything about computers. It's like, all right, sounds good to me.
Yeah. What's funny?
Yeah, it was awesome.
I love that interview. I remember Lewis was throwing like such complex questions and like ideas at me. And I was like, yeah. I was like, that's really interesting. I don't know anything about it yet, but like, yeah. What's funny about that is I heard I was the only candidate to email you guys. Thank you after the meeting.
You were.
I was like, that's common knowledge.
Yeah. And just,
I was thankful.
Yeah. And just from our our perspective, it's when you're looking for intern, you're looking for attitude, right? And you came in with an attitude of wanting to learn and really wanting to explore an entirely new space. And it takes a lot of, in my opinion, it took a lot of a gumption to just say, yeah, I'm a mechanical engineer. I know nothing about cybersecurity, but I want to try and learn it. Like that. Yeah. That for us pretty much sold it. Like, yeah, let's give them a shot.
Yeah. And I don't know what the percentage of like the viewers are for the podcast, but like if there are any younger people out there, like I'd seriously consider applying to startups for internships if they're taking any, because established companies, their expectations for internships are crazy. Like they want you to be knowledgeable already. It's like the whole point of an internship is that I'm a student and I'm here to learn. You guys are supposed to like groom me into like who you want. But
and security and computer science in general, just for that, for the internship process is pretty crazy.
It's crazy, right? Like so many of the internships I applied to is like, oh yeah, you need to be knowledgeable on this, and that. And it's like, okay, well, my courses don't even teach me about taxes. So I don't know how you expected me to know that. But it's so funny.
Plus there's that level of freedom, right? Like, did you have an internship at a bigger company for like Mechie or whatever?
So I've done like brief like apprenticeships. One with my cousin's previous company was at a startup. They were working on robotic arms, and I kind of did like non-paid, right, apprenticeship, kind of just learning the ropes, which was pretty interesting. But like even then, it was just so slow, as I mentioned. Yeah. And then I had also done an internship at another startup, actually. Very, very. It was. I don't even know if they're still in business, right? It was a company called Sparrow, and they're working on basically changing how students get loans. And it was supposed to basically link alumni to students. So you would essentially sponsor a student, right? So you'd want like these richer alumni. And the benefit to the schools would be that alumni are coming back and talking to the school. And then students are getting some, much needed guidance and hopefully job opportunities, right? That was super early stages of that startup. It was like 3 people, and my internship part of it was sending cold emails. So really like, not too much work experience besides that.
That's such a waste of an intern too.
Yeah.
It's like
non-paid as well.
Yeah. Like what are you learning out of sending emails? I think it's like even illegal to do that for unpaid internships. You have to get some kind of tangible skill out of an unpaid internship, and sending emails is not really a tangible skill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hate to say it, but I was not a good worker towards the end of that internship.
Hey, at least you're honest.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like you said, I was just sending emails. I wasn't learning anything.
I mean, that's some of the issues with just internship like processes in general, is like a lot of times, especially in the bigger companies, like they try to pigeonhole something for someone to do, and like sometimes it's good and a lot of times it's not, and the intern doesn't really know. And then on top of that, it's like there's very little freedom, and that's one of the nice things about like doing a startup internship, is that you get that freedom to be like, all right, like I want to do these things or whatever, and you can kind of go do that.
Yeah.
And then there's also like more of that hands-on stuff. Like if you're in a bigger company, like a lot of times, like you're just a cog in the wheel, just like everyone else.
Yeah.
But
and especially doing internships at bigger companies, like, so my decision was made to join Prelude because like the team was small at the time, right? And I actually wanted my internship to have value. Like I knew I was coming in with no experience, but I was like, I know startups need help with everything, and like you need to be agile. You need to be able to switch like different areas of work. And I was like, I know there's got to be something, whether it's sending emails again, but like something I could provide value to instead of working at like a bigger company and just, doing like different filing or like sending emails, right? Or like a presentation on like nothing that won't go anywhere. Like, I think it's important for people who want to do their internships to think about the upside for them and what they can grow, but also like what they could actually provide, because I think that's much needed experience in a different sense.
Yeah, the reason why you do an internship is for the experience, right? And be able to put that on your resume, and then hopefully, like the other thing, is that you do you do this internship, which is usually lower pay than a full-time employee or whatever, and that company will then say, hey, like you want to come on board,
right?
Like, and then it becomes like a win-win scenario. But even a lot of times, like especially with bigger companies, they have their intern like pool is so much bigger, and they just look at you as like cheap labor, and it's like, why?
Did you guys have any like interesting internships when you're first starting out?
I didn't have any internships, but like I've definitely ran a few internship programs, and even from those programs, like I did one from a startup perspective, and like those were great because like you had things to work on, like you had things that those people could work on, and like they would get experience from it, and you got to do that mentorship part. But then from the more bigger piece, like it was still a smaller team, so it kind of worked. But sometimes it depended on the person, right? Like depending on that person and where they were going, like are they going to be pigeonholed, or are they going to have something cool to work on? And it just really determined on the person. Alex, you were at that same place. I'm sure you saw that. Like if depending on who that person was and who they were going to and like who was their mentor, that really determined if they were going to have a good time or a bad time.
Yeah, maybe we shouldn't elaborate on that one. I also have not. I didn't do any internships because I was Air Force ROTC, and your summers are pretty much wrapped up in either training or going back and supporting training of some sort. But I have also been involved in many different internship programs. And I think what we've come up with here is the result of seeing a lot of the failures of other internship programs and trying to not have that. So I like Kris, I don't know if you've seen it, but when you do an internship here, you get like, we have a sprint by sprint breakdown of the areas that you're going to go through. And then we hop you around different areas of our company. So our company's split out between basically product, engineering, security, and systems, and then business, obviously. So as an intern, you're actually going to get experience in all of those. So if you come on as a security engineering intern, you're going to like focus primarily, probably half of your sprints here would be security, but then you're also going to do sprints in systems and engineering and product and business and customer support and stuff. Like the idea is you get to do every aspect of what a business is. That's, to me, that's how you give value. And then it's all like sprint formatted. So you have tickets. So you actually know what you have to do.
Yeah. And to that, our internship program was amazing when I did it, that I even spoke at DEF CON. That's true.
Yeah.
As an intern.
You did speak at DEF CON.
I don't know what other programs could say that.
What was your talk on?
I remember basically autonomous tax within Operator.
Oh, cool.
Using like the custom facts. But Alex, I remember when you and David told me that I was doing a DEF CON speech, and I was like, oh my gosh, I hate public speaking.
Oh, good.
I was so nervous. And then I found out that it was online. I was dreading about it for like a week, right? And then at like our next like sprint meeting or whatever, I find out that it's all online. It's pre-recorded. I was like, oh my gosh, weight off my shoulder. I was freaking out.
Wait, is this why you're not coming to the workshop with me? Don't like being in front of people, because then I'm definitely going to make you go.
No, I actually have exams. I promise
Likely
you.
story.
I would go otherwise. And see,
Like that's a bucket list item for most security engineers is to go talk to DEF CON. Like you did that as an intern.
Yeah. And I mentioned how I was nervous to speak. The other part that I was scared on were the questions because I was like an intern just new to the field. I was like, oh man, I can only imagine what questions are going to be asked. I remember I was seeing if any other team was going to be online in the Discord channel, like during that to see if like they'll help me out. And then nobody was when it happened. And I was like, I bet someone's here disguised as one of these like users asking me these questions. Like that'd be funny. Like, I think throw me an insane question.
I think David and I were physically in Vegas at that point. So I
know you guys
couldn't be there to help you.
I also did another conference. Kris, you did that one as well. You and Alex. Which one was
that? The Code Con?
Something like that. I can't remember.
Something.
I remember Kris and I were on the Discord channel being like, so how do we do Q&A? Is it like audio or like are they just going to drop questions?
Yeah, just the whole like online format of conferences. I actually really like that format. And I think it does well, but it's like for that brief moment there where everybody was like, oh, how do I do this?
Yeah, it's always like right before. I remember like the admin of the channel hadn't added me to the Q&A chat. I was like, hey, I'm presenting in 2 minutes. I was like, should I be in somewhere?
If it makes you feel anybody better, Kris and I completely goofed on the day of one of our one of our presentations. Yeah. And I got a call at like 2 a.m. Dude, we got to present in an hour.
Yeah. It's like, oh my gosh.
My bad.
And you guys did it though. So.
It's fine.
Yeah.
It's easy. Yeah.
It's totally great.
It went well.
It was like, yeah.
What conferences should I look forward to? Like just attending? Because I'm sure there will be some I will.
I mean, there's so many good conferences now.
Yeah.
One in Vegas, I feel like has to be.
I mean, yeah.
Actually, those are the ones, like the bigger ones, like the real big ones, like DEF CON or whatever. Like those are the ones that are kind of like starting to, like DEF CON has its place, right? Like, but it's not like.
But he needs to go to at least one to experience it. Like,
yeah. Oh, absolutely. Like, because DEF CON is the after party of Black Hat, right? Like it is a party.
It's a party.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And then, you know, you have B-sides, Vegas there too, which actually I really like their format, like the lightning talks and stuff like that. And they usually have it all in just one room and people just kind of walk in, and I like that format.
Yeah.
And either you like Vegas or not. Like I'm not a big fan of Vegas just in general, but you know, other people there is like, yeah, this is my jam.
$500 stakes, right? There's got to be some for me.
It's actually. It's not that bad.
I take it back, actually.
But yeah, like the Infiltrate and you know all these like smaller cons. Unfortunately, like that's the problem in this industry from a security perspective. Like talking about cons, like we're going on completely on a different tangent. But yeah, like you either have this scenario where it's like super cheap cons that everybody goes to, that's great and it's fun. There tend to be parties and stuff like that, or you get these really expensive cons. It just goes the other way, right? It's like super expensive, and you've got like maybe 100, 200 people there at max, and they're great cons, and you learn a lot. But they're just like it'll cost you your whole training budget to go to one. So,
are you doing any conferences soon, Kris? I know Alex is doing one.
I don't think so.
I have 2 in May. We have the workshop, and then we one in Iowa. So we do telecommunications conferences as well, because that's like our primary customer is people who don't do cybersecurity. So we try to find telecom and like those off the beaten trail conferences to go talk to people and share knowledge, bridge gaps, that kind of thing.
Is there like a destination in Iowa that you have to see? Like, what's the tourist spot?
I don't know, but if anybody from Iowa is listening and you have any input, let me know.
Let us know. What's the best pizza place there?
So to get back on track. So you were done with your internship, and then you started doing some QA stuff. That was during 1.4 time, 1.5.
Yeah, 1.4, 1.3 to 1.5. That's like my main QA.
Yeah. How was that like? Like QA is its own little beast, right? Like you got to find people's bugs, then you got to go tell them like, "Yo, dude, fix your stuff."
It's fun. At the same time, sometimes I'd feel bad, you know, like especially because like I just made that transition from intern to full-time worker. It'd be like, "Hey, I found this bug," and it's like they're like, "Okay, right?" And it's like, "All right, that's all I had to say." You know what I mean? It's like, "Hey, if I didn't like, I wouldn't tell them I fixed it or anything." It's just like, "Hey, I found this." It's like, okay, you know what I mean? I feel bad like pushing people on like stuff like that, but it was definitely super interesting, like to learn about QA. I find QA like fascinating. I really like writing tests when they work. I don't like writing them when they don't. But a lot of my QA had to do with an operator, right? So like a lot of UI based testing, just to make sure like what the users were doing, they wouldn't encounter any obscure like edge case bug, right? And that part of QA isn't as fun at all, especially when you've done like, I'd say honestly on your 5th cycle, it's like I don't know, you know, thoughtless activities. It's just like clicking every button in a certain pattern or sequence that would somehow cause, like, obviously there's some intention, right?
The QA process, the process of like going through it, like,
and you go through it, and you go through it, and you go through it, right? And it's like
your automated test scripts and all that stuff.
And it's funny. It's like, I remember Far Cry 3, if you guys have played that video game, the main character is like, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different outcome. And I was like, I feel like that's QA in a nutshell sometimes. You know what I mean? But I
and David gave you a lot of power on QA.
Yeah.
Like if you want to, you know, if you need to stop the release, like,
no, he did.
It's all on you.
Which was awesome because like, as like a younger person, like really starting their career, like having that power already was great. Right. Like, also keeps me accountable for what I do. But QA was really interesting when I got to like integration and unit tests. That's what I really liked. I wish I had dedicated more time to writing those tests during my sprints, but obviously there are more important testing that we had to do before a big 1.5 release, which if you guys haven't checked it out, check it out.
Yeah.
1.5. It's awesome. I remember when I went back to 1.4 for like a bit of testing before, I was like, man, it's like, get me back to master.
I think that was like a lot of people's like feelings. Like I know Sam was like that. Like, can I just make my stuff for 1.5?
Right. I heard the TTPs. Yeah. It's like, no, Sam, everyone who's going to be using it's going to be on production. It was like, wait a week. And then,
So now you're like transitioned to front end. Like, what are you looking forward to?
Yeah. Honestly, so I remember when I started my internship, David had asked me what are a few areas that I'm interested in. And I've always considered myself not a designer by any means, but like I can make things look nice. Like my DEF CON slides, I thought they were like a work of art, even though they definitely were just okay. But I really like all the like front. So I'm focusing on front end, right? I like the creativity that I can put into what I'm doing. And at the same time, I'm a super indecisive person though. So I'll spend like 30 minutes to an hour just reshaping the padding on something, I'd be like, no, this isn't quite right. Then it's like going back and forth. So it's like a super interesting area for me to work in because like I have so much fun doing it. But at the same time, like my indecisive nature like really gets the best of me sometimes and I lose track of time. But like with that, because I'm so indecisive, like thinking like in the future, right? Like working with Robert, as he gives me the designs, like I won't have to think about any of that, right? It's just like, oh, just recreate this. Yeah. That's what I'm looking forward to. Because otherwise it's going to take me a lot longer. But
so we're going to come back from a year from now and you'll be like, that button.
Yeah.
That button was amazing. Like I made that button.
You have no idea how long this button took me.
Yeah. The padding on that got changed 30 times. It's a good thing. Like padding doesn't have like set increments, right? Like you can't change anything to the tens place, right? Because otherwise they'd have like padding 3.1, 3.2, 3.3. Like I could only imagine how much time I would waste on that if you consider that a waste, but
you'll know the Adobe RGB color wheel by heart.
I saw someone recently, he said like, his like, what's like your bar trick or whatever, right? He's like, he can guess what color it is based off their RGB or like their hex value. And I was like, wow, I got to get to that point. I think it would.
We knew somebody from White Hatters who would, who like, wanted to make sure that they matched.
Yeah.
So they didn't like, look bad or whatever. So they would go to the RGB color wheel and like there's a matching tool that would match, like tell you if the colors like match accurately.
Yeah.
And so he would just use that in order to like make sure that like what he was wearing that day would color match.
Wait, how did he take like a picture of himself first?
No. You just get the color value.
Oh, okay, yeah. He knew the color value.
Yeah. And it would like, does this match? Yeah, that totally matches. That works.
Kris, I think there's an app idea in there somewhere. A daily photo of your outfit, and then it will like scientifically check if they match, if those colors like coordinate well.
So for the people who don't know, like the other thing about Stephan is that he will like Spencer and David will always ask him for crazy ideas. Yeah. And so we'll be sitting there and like getting Stephan's crazy ideas for like an hour. and that's another thing that you can cross off the bucket list. Like you got to like present a crazy idea to a
VC. Yeah. And his response was hilarious. I won't go into detail, but it was awesome. It was probably the last thing I thought his response would be. But yeah, so I mean, 22, spoke at DEF CON and pitched to a VC,
Yeah, there you go.
And working at a startup. I think that's like, I'm doing pretty well so far.
And actually, you've been working at a startup and you've gone through a seed and Series A funding.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, you weren't here for seed, so you've gone through a Series A.
Series A, yeah. See, I think seed was like right before.
Yeah, we had just closed our seed joined right before you had joined. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is crazy, Alex, because in like 3 months, it'll be a year since I've been here.
Oh, wow. Really?
Isn't that so crazy? Like
that is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Time flies when you're having fun, I guess.
Dude, seriously, like I've enjoyed my time so much here, and it's only going to get better too.
So I think we're going to wrap up here, but we've got one last question for you.
And
what security resource in the past year have you found really helpful?
There's
probably a lot.
And so what do we mean by resource? Just
anything, like something online, something people can go to and say, hey, like, yeah. What's something that's helped you like to go through like software engineering or?
Oh, I think everyone knows the first answer that comes to their mind with that Stack Overflow. But that doesn't really relate to security.
Yeah, it does.
In a way.
You wouldn't just copy and paste in your Stack Overflow. Hopefully not.
No. I don't, but I'll give you a sidetracked answer because I'm not too sure what resource I've really like looked into security wise, but recently it
doesn't have to be security.
Yeah.
Like if you want to be software engineer.
The only source of information that and this might not be great, right? That I use is Reddit, which is crazy to think, right? Because I don't trust
any particular subreddit.
No, honestly, just like I'll like look up a question and then put in Reddit at the end. And the reason I do that is because I trust like other people's experiences more, right? And like especially with Reddit, people will just give it to you straight, and I like when I look up answers or like, if I'm comparing two different products, right? Like you click on these news articles and you're like, well, I bet this one news article got this product 2 weeks early, right? And he like probably has some stake in what he's going to write about. And so I've like really strayed away from any sort of news article in that sense and just purely get my information from Reddit,
Reddit's a good resource.
It is.
Yeah.
So I would say that one, but I'm not sure if it'd be the best resource for security. I'm sure some subreddits though.
Yeah. I mean, InfoSec subreddits not bad. And like InfoSec students and stuff like that.
Do you guys use Reddit a lot for that same reason?
I use it every day.
Yeah. I don't have an account. I'll have to get one, but
dude, you don't harvest the karma.
I don't think I have any.
Come on.
There's like the upvotes, right? And I see badges sometimes too. Like some guy will give it to you straight on a product, and all of a sudden he has like these gold medals above him. I was like, oh, this guy's trustworthy. He's got like a Doge badge. I was like, yep. Whatever. He could be the president for all I know. For all I care.
Hey, they sponsored the Doge NASCAR car.
Yeah.
The whole Doge, our Doge did the whole NASCAR car. Crazy.
But yeah, so I'd say that's my primary source of information right now.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Sweet. All right. Well, Stephan, it was great to talk to you.
Yeah.
And sure we'll have you back on the podcast.
Oh, yeah. Alex, Kris, thank you so much for having me on.
Absolutely. We'll ask you how the buttons are doing.
Yeah. And, a year from now, if you guys have me back on, probably sooner than that, but ask me how I interpret Lewis's code then.
Yeah.
Probably a lot better.
We'll do a whole podcast on Lewis's
code. And just have every member who's touched the code base talk on it.
Yeah.
Speak on it.
Give your interpretation of this code base. Right?
I still think it's hilarious that I had to break out his 3 lines into like 20 just to understand all the nested stuff going on. But thanks, guys.
Absolutely. So that's going to do it for this week's episode of Overture, the Prelude Podcast. I'd like to thank Stephan again for coming on the podcast and talking with us. We will be back again sometime this month for our 12th episode of Overture. If you like this podcast, please consider giving us a like and subscribe so you don't miss any of our newest episodes. Overture is distributed on all major podcasting platforms, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, our blog at feed.prelude.org, and our YouTube. We will see you again this month. Till then, Prelude out.